Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to Theory and Theology here on this podcast. We talk about cultures and spirituality and religion and traditions, and today we are going to continue the talk about Indigenous groups around the beach cities and South Bay area of Los Angeles. So there's a group of people named the Tongva people, Tongva. There's some debate that, is this the original name, or was there another name that these people were called, like what they called themselves. Sometimes in history that is kind of a different thing. So in LA Times link called Mapping the Tongva Villages of LA's Past, there's a cool oh my gosh, so it's a very interactive map I'm finding all of a sudden, and it's oh my gosh, I don't know how to use this. So when you move on it, it changes the names and stuff to different villages. So let me see. Oh my gosh, it's moving, sorry. So basically, just looking at one area called Tovaangar. Now, I have no idea how to actually pronounce these. I'm just giving my American language version of the pronunciations. I haven't looked into the linguistics charts about the language and the phonemes and all the various types of details of the Tongva language or languages to see how to accurately pronounce these. I'm just pronouncing them as they're written in the English lettering. So apologies if I'm mispronouncing these. And a lot of these, this is the first time I'm even looking at these words. And so I don't really know how they're pronounced. I've never heard them before in my life. I've never seen them written anywhere at all, anywhere in Los Angeles. And so it says Tovaangar, as one word, is the original people of Los Angeles. The Tongva defined their world as Tovaangar. It extended from Palos Verdes to San Bernardino, from Saddleback Mountain to the San Fernando Valley. So that's a huge area. From that South Bay area of Palos Verdes to San Bernardino is about 70-80 miles one way. I'm not sure how far Saddleback Mountain and San Fernando Valley is, but I know San Gabriel and San Fernando in the valley are a little distant from the South Bay area. They're not like right nearby. It's about an hour, and I'm not even accounting for like traffic. I'm just estimating there. So Tovaangar. So I'm looking at this on a smartphone. I might need to switch to a laptop. But it's cool that they have an interactive map, just it's a little strange to try to navigate it. So it says, from the mountains to the sea, long before the development of Los Angeles with its freeways and suburbs, Southern California was known for its grasslands, estuaries, and oak-covered foothills. I would probably not imagine that based on the city just covered in complete concrete. Like, there are green spaces, but you really don't. It's not very apparent, honestly. So there's some areas where you're going like coastal from like Orange County area. It's Genga'a, and then going north from there around the Palos Verdes area, it's Cha'alvenga, and above that north is Amu Pubit, and wow, I'm trying to see like where's the area where I would go snowboarding. Okay, so I don't really know how to use this map. My apologies. I'm like clicking all over the place. Pimu would be Catalina Island. So those are the villages, just some of the villages. It's not all of them. And okay, so it says, wow. Okay, so I see now. I have to scroll up, and each time I scroll up, the map changes with what it's saying in the caption. So this next caption, a land of villages. So Tovaangar supported about 5,000 people in nearly 100 villages. Each village was independent and interconnected. Baptismal records from the Spanish missions collected by the early California Cultural Atlas Project suggest the size of each village represented in orange. So it seems like the inland villages of Juyubit and Hotu'uknga were very large villages compared to most of the other ones. I mean, I know those kind of regions, and they're really hot. I don't know. I think it might almost be preferable to live closer to the coast, but I would have assumed that there were more people by the coast, but I don't know. Maybe people had fled as well. I really don't know. I'm just guessing off the top of my head. So if you look over on the map near like Naples, in like Long Beach area, by the VA Long Beach, and Cal State University Long Beach, there's a village just east of the university, where that village would have been. Oh my gosh, is called, it's moving, my gosh, everything's moving. Sorry. Oh my gosh, I've never seen anything like this. Dang, how do I get back? Okay. Tovaangar. So the village Tovaangar is East Long Beach, was, in quotes, the place of emergence, where the Tongva believed their world and their lives began. It is considered a sacred site, and a university is built right on top of it. So let's see the streets. I'm trying to zoom in and see the streets, and then like everything changes every single time. Okay, what the heck did I just do? Okay. I don't know who made this for mobile app, but this is a little hard for me to navigate. I'm trying to zoom in on the streets. I can't really do it too easily. But basically, north of 2nd Street, south of the 405, just east of Long Beach, right by the water. It's right there. right there east of the university. Can't see the street name. But yeah, Tovaangar. So another area looks at... Actually, this is a really cool site. I'm just a little frustrated with it. Another site it looks at Mission San Gabriel. So we talked about missions a little bit before. I didn't get all into it. Basically, one basic part of the missions were that they were run by Spanish padres, which were, Catholic clergy. And there's an area, Mission San Gabriel, so the San Gabriel mission, there's a village right there called Tovaangar. So I'm noticing this anga. I'm wondering if that means like village or something like that, because it's coming up a lot in a lot of the villages, as far as like the names of these places. So I'm curious about that. I studied linguistics for quite some time, and I kind of get curious about that kind of stuff, but I'm not going to dive deep into it, or else I'll probably take like another few days just looking up terminology. But the village Tovaangar was north of Whittier Narrows, close to the second location of Mission San Gabriel. The original site was abandoned after flooding, so this is the second site. The Spanish were the first to encounter the Tongva, whom they called Gabrielinos. So you see that word pop up a lot in websites. There's if you search the following resources, the Gabrielino-Tongva. So the website http://Gabrielino-Tongva.com. There's the Gabrielino tribe. That's gabrielinotribe.org. There's the Tongva people. That's www.tongvapeople.org. There's also Santa Fe Springs Historical Committee, and just information from the area of La Habra. So, Gabrielinos. So, here's another one. The village Yaanga near downtown Los Angeles is believed to have been the largest of the Tongva villages, just west of Los Angeles River. Yaanga now lies beneath the 101 freeway. So north of Yaanga, you see Union Station, ends right by that 101 freeway, and right between Commercial Street and Union Station, underneath the 101 freeway, is the Yaanga village. This is very informative, very sad, very interesting. So Pimu, Santa Catalina Island, or Pimu, was valued by the Tongva for its natural resources. It was an important ceremonial center connected to Tovaangar. Okay. Looking at the San Fernando Valley. Trying to see this picture. Wow. So looking at the San Fernando Valley, on the western edge of Tovaangar, the valley was at the crossroads of cultures and languages, including Tongva, Fernandinho, and Chumash. So people have probably heard about the Chumash. Wow. Okay, so Koruuva, the village Koruuvaanga in West Los Angeles was the site of a spring that still flows and is maintained by the Gabrielino/Tongva Springs Foundation. So where is this? Los Angeles site, West Los Angeles Village. I'm trying to look for it on the map. Oh no. Where was I reading? I lost my place. Koru. I don't see it. It's zooming in on West Los Angeles Veteran Affairs Medical Center on the West LA VA that like Wilshire crosses into. It doesn't say exactly where on the map. So it says resettlement between the years of 1769 and 1840. Tovaangar was irrevocably changed. The arrival of the Spanish with disease, invasive species, and livestock upended the ecological balance of the region and forced the Tongva to resettle around the three missions. Okay, so that's about that timeline, that 1769. There that is again. And that's when you start seeing different places, like I mentioned before, the what was it called? Rancho San Pedro, around that time period, because the land was given to somebody at that time. There's Topaanga. I'm wondering if that's Topanga, like Topanga Canyon. Oh, yeah, so here it comes again. So, the echoes of the past. Despite the loss of these villages, place names in Los Angeles still reflect the region's heritage. So Topanga, Cahuenga, and Azusa are from Tongva words. And it says Tujunga and Pasoima and Fernandinho and Cucamonga and Sereno. So yeah. It's kind of interesting, like Azusa. Somebody, I don't know if this was from a movie or a show or something, where they said like Azusa is everything from A to Z in the USA. It's like, that's not even what it means. I kind of actually believed that. I was like, oh, that's why they named it that. And like, no, it's not. So, and then the last part says, recovering the past. This map of Tovaangar draws upon the work of a number of scholars, including Stephen Hackle, Stephen O'Neill, Nat Zapia, and Janet Zernick, whose Early California Cultural Atlas, a spatial history project funded by the National Endowment for the Humanities and Early California Population Project, developed by the Huntington Library, are essential resources. Very cool resource, very well done, very informative. I don't think I would have seen this information otherwise. Whole lot of information up in here. So I was reading something else about, let's see if these links will work, about this lady. She was considered a Tongva medicine woman named Toi Purina. So Toi Purina, she basically was a Tongva woman who helped lead rebellions against the Spanish missionaries. They had invaded her homeland and started using force to baptize people into Catholicism and forcing them into the missions. And basically her and the rebels got caught because they were, word got out to the Spanish that they were gonna revolt, and unfortunately they weren't able to carry out the rebellion. It says the leaders were imprisoned, and Toi Purina was still defiant. They said defiant, but I don't like that word. At her trial, I mean, she was sticking up for herself. She was defending herself against oppression, basically. I don't know if I'd call that defiant. That, I don't know, whatever. But Toi Purina remained defiant, as they said, and gave a speech denouncing the Spanish. She was imprisoned for 1.5 years. After her release, she was baptized as a Christian and spent the rest of her life in exile in Northern California near Monterey. Monterey is beautiful, by the way, but it's very cold. It says, there's a quote from her trial on this aclunc.org website. The quote from the trial says, "I hate the Padres and all of you for living here on my native soil, for trespassing on the land of my forefathers and despoiling our tribal domains." I believe her, Toi Purina, she was kind of, I believe in the story it mentions that the last straw was that, the Tongva people were denied from doing their ceremonial traditional dances for the burials of their dead, and that kind of was the last straw for her. That would almost be like, I mean, not even the same thing, but that would almost be like if somebody came in and was conquering and like enslaving your people, and is just like, oh, like, even though everyone's getting killed of diseases and killed from slavery and killed from just people just killing them and massacred and murdered and genocide, and then not even being able to properly bury them. I mean, come on, like, imagine if somebody said you can no longer have funerals. You can't have a funeral service. You can't have a memorial service. You can't have any kind of a recognition of service that you're used to doing in your own tradition, even though we're here killing all your people, and your people are dying primarily because of us. I mean, that is, I mean, it's already too far, in all honesty, but, I mean, come on, So, did I just close that? Oh, no. Sorry, I closed one of my links. I hope this isn't too messy, because I'm kind of like, I'm kind of bopping all over the place here. Just stuff that was kind of interesting to me that I was able to find easily. And this stuff isn't easy to find, guys. It's not, I mean, there's a little information out there, but you'd think a city as huge as Los Angeles, an area as huge as those regions mentioned in Southern California, between the north of Orange County all the way to like San Gabriel, pretty much, or all the way to San Bernardino, pretty much. That's a large stretch of land. It's I don't know how far, but I think it's over 100 miles, about 100 miles just going north. Because from San Diego to Wrightwood is 100 miles, and from the South Bay area to Wrightwood is also 100 miles about. And so, like, yeah, that area is about 100 miles. From Orange County, I think it's a little closer because you're just going north from inland. But yeah, that's a long distance, guys. And so there's some information on the Tongva Tiat, which is a type of a canoe. It's there's a lot of indigenous maritime culture information that people can look up. These canoes seem pretty badass. Like, they're pretty big, really solid. I don't really know a lot about like building boats or anything like that, but it seems to me that I've seen the other types of canoes that are made of like either reeds, or the other types of canoes that are made out of like a wooden or bone kind of frame structure, and then skins kind of stretched over it. I feel like wooden, I mean, they're so heavy and big, and you see multiple people carrying it and multiple people inside of it. It's just a lot, there's a lot of history that is brand new to me. Places that I go and hang around a lot of the time, of different times a year, that I don't know anything about the history of these people. Something more present is the talk about, or the conversation surrounding, are the Tongva recognized federally, and the Gabrielino Tongva are not federally recognized. And also with students, from tribes that are not federally recognized, there is, I was just learning about this, that they don't get free tuition. And that's fucked up. I mean, it's just, I don't even know what to do or say, like I'm pretty speechless. Like, I'm trying to like say things, but it's like, yeah, the more I'm like clicking around on stuff, the more I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like, it's definitely horrible. Like, I know that there's definitely horrible history. I'm not expecting to find like a lot of like fun, but also, there's more to people than like the canoes and the names of the villages, and like they have deities and a creator, and all this kind of history that I'm still trying to look into, that is just very fascinating to me. It's also fascinating to me that a lot of it doesn't just come up easily at a quick Google search. Like, the stuff that I mentioned, it would come up if you searched it like I mentioned it, but just trying to search like Tongva related things is like really not as easy as I thought it would be. I thought I would just search, Tongva culture, Tongva history. Well, first I was searching Rancho San Pedro history, and wasn't even finding Tongva. Like, Tongva didn't even come up. That came up from just like LA tribes. And so, yeah, I mean, some things like the West LA VA and the, Cal State Long Beach, their sites in those areas, you can go check them out. The missions are still there. Let's see. And so there's so it says the San Gabriel mission was founded by Spaniards of the Franciscan order of the Feast of the Birth of Mary, September 8th of 1771. So we're back in the 1770s again in this Los Angeles area in the valley. So let's see. So if we look at like Tongva, oh my gosh, Tongva and San Gabriel. I don't know what's going on here. It's almost like I don't know how to use the internet. So Tongva and San Gabriel. Mission. So it says the missionaries had erected the San Gabriel mission in what is now Los Angeles County and had tried to outlaw native culture and assimilate the Tongva tribe into Catholicism. Toi Purina watched as the mission drained her village and those around it of resources. Many people died from diseases brought by the Spanish. And there's a question, what Indians lived in the San Gabriel mission. The mission was, so that San Gabriel mission was the fourth of the 21 California missions. So it was the fourth one. So it was early, known as the pride of the California missions, in quotes. I'm pretty sure not everybody agreed with that title. The Native American population living in the area, the Gabrielino Tongva Indians, helped to build the mission and remained a key part of the story of that region. That's kind of a weird explanation. That's not what I was looking for. I mean, it does talk about the tribes that went to the mission. There is some mention that, because of all the death around, a lot of the indigenous groups did end up needing to depend on the missions for, resources, because, how could they really live and do life the way that they were doing it when there were people trying to destroy it and kill them and everything and displace them and enslave them. I'm not 100% sure about baptism, how that really worked. I'm gonna assume that people who were baptized had more access to services. I was watching or reading a lot about how come a lot of people, how come in Los Angeles there's a very large Mexican culture, and it's potentially something to look into, that a lot of people who were claiming to be Mexican would say that they were Mexican, would say that they were Catholic, because being indigenous, you didn't have as much access to things as you would if you were Mexican. Like, Mexicans in society had a higher status and were Spanish speaking and were not indigenous. I mean, maybe overall, I don't really want to like generalize, but that's kind of what I gather, is that there are likely a lot of people from a lot of different tribes around in the LA valleys and things, like in San Bernardino and the deserts and the mountains, all these different places, that there were other types of tribes, but people started identifying as Mexican. I mean, just looking at people, I mean, you can tell kind of the difference between people who weren't maybe like mingling and having children that were like half Spanish, but also the Spanish language. Like, when you think of Mexico, you think of Spanish language. You don't think about so much all the indigenous groups and languages. I remember I took a Native American, I think it was called Native American history class when I was in community college, and it was that's the first time I heard about the Mexicans. It's still spelled like Mexican. I wasn't too sure the difference between Mexicans and Mexicans. I'm pretty sure that some of the Mexicans were Mexicans, like, but not every single person who was labeled as Mexican was actually a Mexican person. And then there was this movie I remember I watched a long time ago with like Juan Diego Boto, and it was called The Dancer Upstairs or something like that. And there was a kid who knew just like a native language. I don't remember if they were in South America though. I can't remember if they were like in South America or in Mexico or where they were. But I remember like, oh yeah, like it kind of, jogged my memory about, indigenous groups, and that, there are a lot of places where there are people who live closer to old ways. And, I'm not sure the relationship of cultures when it comes to mission. Like, just, when I read something that says missionaries, the missionaries, that word is starting to have a different connotation to it. When I think about residential schools, or when I think about when I think about residential schools, when I think about the missions, when I think about enslavement, I mean, it's another form of enslavement. I mean, we don't call it Native American slavery or like indigenous slavery. Like, we focus a lot on black slavery, which I'm not saying like one's better or worse or whatever. I'm just saying, like, they're slaves, basically, like, in their own land, basically. I mean, like, not everybody lived out in that San Gabriel Valley area. Like, some people would have lived in other places and been stolen and captured and taken out there, or forced out there. I mean, it's not the most pleasant of areas with the harsh conditions of weather. I don't feel like the valley is like the most ideal place if you're not used to that kind of place. But yeah, somebody just being forced to work. I mean, is that not slavery? It's slavery. If you're not getting paid for it, it's slavery. Being forced to like become a certain religion or go to a certain institutionalized school that's basically almost it's almost like a jail. It's almost like I kind of see residential schools to almost be similar to like a jail for kids. It's like a jail. It's like, you don't have freedom. You can't leave. You can't go back home. Your parents can't contact you. You can't contact them. There's no like visitation. You get punished for breaking rules, and severe punishment. You're being like forced out of your culture, forced into, Western culture against your will. It's almost like a reform correctional style of institution. And I'm not saying that I don't want to say correctional. That kind of like assumes a lot of things too. Like, I don't want it to sound like I believe that people of indigenous cultures and traditions are like needing to like bend to do what Western culture teaches. I don't believe that at all, but I don't really know what terminology to use. It's like even hard to even like choose the phrases and terminology that I use, because I have to like challenge it, because I'm like, well, that's not really the same thing. Like when we say correctional, usually it's like in a jail system where it's like somebody committed a crime and did something wrong, and so they're imprisoned and they're in a correctional place where they're supposed to be, whatever time they're serving and whatever they're doing is supposed to correct what they're doing, so that when they come out, they're better trained to live peacefully in society and not infringe on other people's rights. I don't really even think that jails and prisons necessarily do that, but Western culture has a really hard problem with institutions. They don't tend to really cater to actually do what they say that they set out to do. They tend to say, okay, we're gonna do this, like the whole like thing about the institutions and the schools and stuff about like kill the Indian, save the I don't know, what is it, like save the man, kill the Indian or something? I can't remember what it was. It was like some stupid phrase that like as part of the propaganda of everything, of like why they were like kind of like their kind of main stance on why they were trying to do those institutionalized schools for the kids. I don't really even want to call it school. Like, you're basically just taking away everything. It's not really like a school. It's really just, taking away a culture and brainwashing, I guess. Brainwashing, forcing into being more westernized. I'm gonna end with this. This isn't really related, but there's a series that I like. It's pretty dark. I like it because of just how it portrays, the people who were settling in the U.S. and all that kind of thing. It's called Into the West, and it's a series. You can find it free on YouTube. The versions that got copied off of the made-for-TV series, and it's I don't know how many parts, maybe like a 6 or 8 part series, and it goes all the way from people in like covered wagons coming across from the Wheeler family that were wheelwrights basically in like Virginia, that made their way all the way across to like California, and all that they encountered, and all their history of their family, and how they were like intermingling with different tribes and marrying and having kids, and all the whole, the people who died along the routes, and, the people they were involved in, and the racism at that time, and some interactions with black people at that time. And it wasn't all totally prejudiced. That's something that I did kind of like seeing, is that it was a portrayal of Caucasian people where, it wasn't just all prejudiced people. Like, some of the people did have a mind to try to understand other cultures, and just thinking about how many different cultures people were exposed to. And they were able to kind of navigate that, some more smoothly than others. And it ends pretty much, it doesn't end, but it goes into like a more modern time at the end of the series. Towards the end of the series, it shows like parts about like the residential schools and stuff like that. Like, there's a movie called The Education of Little Tree. It's kind of like a more G-rated version of a mixed indigenous kid who was mixed, like Cherokee and white, and he went to a residential school too and was severely punished. Like, it doesn't show like, it shows things, being like whipped, and some other shows, they show like being caged or starved, or caged up in a basement. Like, who cage kids in a basement? Kids died of like depression and suicide and starvation and being beaten to death and stuff like that. I mean, like, wow. I mean, is that not considered torture? That's torture. There's a series called Anne with an E. It was an obnoxious series that I tried to watch during one of my PTOs, and it just was obnoxious to me because the main character was like crying in every episode, and I'm like, oh my god, just like get on with the episode. Like, she was just a little dramatic, but she befriends a girl. I think they're in like Nova Scotia or somewhere in like Canada, and she befriends a girl from a tribe, and she's not very prejudiced to hardly anybody, but she experienced a lot of hardships herself, living in an orphanage and all this stuff. And there's a portion where that kid gets put in a residential school as well, and kind of is locked away with like nuns and things, and they don't even let the parents come see or visit. The parents are turned away at like gunpoint, and like stuff like that. And like, the kids, they had to like escape basically. Like, it's just stuff that I can't even imagine. And the ones who do survive, like, when you think about the reality of history, right? The ones who do survive all of this trauma and tragedy go on and have kids, and that's a whole other generation of people being raised by people with that kind of trauma. I mean, and not to mention all the trauma that those families went through even before the residential schools were even an option, or even like a reality, an unfortunate reality. I don't even want to call it an option. I don't think anybody was like willingly going into it, but thinking about, you're a young kid, 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, 10 years old, 13 years old, and going into these institutions. And before that, who knows what was happening on your land, with your village, with your tribe, depending what part of the world you're in at that point. There were people coming in, taking your land, killing your people. It wasn't uncommon for military to be involved and just raid people. Like, even if you watch The Last Samurai, the main character, he has a lot of PTSD and nightmares and flashbacks about, and it leads to like alcohol abuse, and he tries to, once he gets captured by the Japanese, you see a lot of him with his flashbacks and how he's like going in, like into his memory about like, being part of the military and being told that he has to, fight under Custer against these different, villages of people and tribes of people. I mean, if you think about, these were careers of people. They were just killing people, at military force. I mean, like, what peaceful group of, tribe has a choice if you have military coming to you in force, killing you, and would your city survive if the military decided to rise up against you and start just destroying everybody? I mean, even in modern society, it's like, there's no way. That's not even a fair fight. And to be lied about on it, like, oh, just kill them just because they're there, and just say that we're killing them because of this reason that's not even true. It's like, it's like, I don't know. I don't even know what to say. It's beyond tragic. It's still going on, though. I mean, it's definitely, like, enforced to, rid lands of tribal people. I feel like governments just turn a blind eye. There's really nobody defending these people. There's not like a military defending them. They don't have militaries defending them. They don't have their own militaries. They're just kind of stuck at the mercy of whatever the laws are, that are destroying their opportunities, destroying their future generations' opportunities. And I'm not saying they're getting weaker and weaker and weaker, but I think one of the first steps is just for, us mainstream Americans to even learn about what it is that's happening right in our backyards, of where we go, where we hang out, how are these cities even developed? You think a city like Los Angeles, it would be easy to find information, like, that we would be taught more about this stuff. Like, a person like me who studied multiple cultures, multiple language histories, who, was very immersed in the culture in LA with a lot of people, went to grad school, went to school in San Diego. I like being around diverse groups of people. And still, I have to go out of my way to research stuff, to find information about groups of people that, named the canyons that I hike in, or named the, the places where I snowboard, like in Taos. And, like, I have to go, like, out of my way to, like, find the information, like, about Big Bear Lake and, like, all these different places that are resorts that are, like, sacred areas for people. You just hike up to Quaipe Peak as an exercise hike, and then, it's actually like a sacred site, and, like, you drive on the 8 freeway in San Diego going east, and it's built on top of, like, sacred trails that lead people to certain places and stuff like that. It's like, I have to go out of my way to find this information. It's like, I don't know, when does this information become mainstream? And I mean, it's at a point, I feel like, where, like, a lot of it is like, why can't we just be real now and just, like, give us the information? Like, it's so hidden. And and I don't know, like, there's just so much of it out there too. Like, so many villages, so many tribes, so many groups, languages, that there's just, like, hints of, like, of their existence. There's just hints about it. So, I don't know. Something to think on. But for now, I hope this was helpful, and thanks for listening.